Shalom, shalom. In today's video, we will be discussing the 5 rigid leaves that emerge from 13 petals. And for today's lesson, we'll be in Book 1 of the Zohar. For those who have the Kabbalah Center Unabridged Edition, it will be on page 3 and page 4. So let's get straight to it. It says, Rabbi Hezekiah opened the discussion with the verse, as the lily among the thorns. In here, in the Aramaic, it says Katib Kashoshana Bin Hachohim. And the word Kashoshana here is the word rose. And if we see here, it says Bin is the word between, Hachohim. By taking the first letter of the word, the thorns, which is letter Hey, and combining it with the word between, you have the word Bina, signifying that this first rose is Bina. And this next one, he then says, what is the lily? And of course, what? Ma'an Shoshana. This refers to Malkuth. It is the congregation of Israel, because there's a lily and there's a lily. Ve'it Shoshana, referring to Malkuth, and Da'it Shoshana, referring to Bina. And so it says, just as the lily among the thorns is tinged red and white, so is the congregation of Israel affected by the qualities of judgment and mercy, just as the lily has 13 petals. So the congregation of Israel is surrounded by 13 attributes of mercy. Thus, between the first mention of the name Elohim, which appears in the beginning Elohim created, to the second mention of Elohim, there are 13 words in the verse, which translate as the heaven and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and a wind. These words surround and guard the congregation of Israel. Now, true Kabbalah study can only be done in the original language, Hebrew. And as there is no Kabbalah without Torah, no Torah without Kabbalah, of course we'll have to go back into Bereshit. And so this is Genesis 1:1. So what the Zohar is saying is that between the word Elohim and the word Elohim, there are 13 words, which are Et is 1, Hashemayim 2, Va'et 3, Ha'aretz 4, V'ha'aretz 5, Hayatah 6, Tohu 7, Vabohu 8, Vachoshek 9, Ol 10, Faneh 11, Tahom 12, Varuach 13. And then the word Elohim again. And so this upper Elohim, and there's lower Elohim. And so these 13 words represent the 10 Sephirot of Asiya, and 1 for Yetzirah, 1 for Berea, and 1 for Atziluth. And it's assembled like this. So, Et here symbolizes Atziluth. Hashemayim here symbolizes Berea. Va'et here symbolizes Yetzirah. Ha'aretz symbolizes the Kether of Asiya, and the remaining words symbolizes the 10 Sephirot of Asiya respectively, ending with the word Varuach. And so here we have a composition. And in a circular aspect, it says there are 13 petals. And so the 13 petals are assembled like this, because all of the Sephirot have circular aspects. Thus, here is one mentioning of Elohim, and here is Malkuth, another mentioning Elohim. So here's surrounding, which is the first mention of Elohim, and here's the second mention of Elohim. And here are the 13 words, which represent all of the worlds, 4 worlds. And these 4 worlds are going to be equated on the next page when it refers to the leaves. So we go back into the Zohar and we go to page 4, and it says, after the name Elohim is mentioned another time in the passage, and Elohim moved over. And why is it mentioned again? In order to bring out the 5 rigid leaves that surround the lily. And so these 5 words are in between the second mentioning of Elohim and the third mentioning of Elohim. And they are Merokfet, Al, Venai, Hamaim, Vayomer. And these 5 words, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, represent 5 partsufim, which are Arik, Anpin, Abba, Ima, Zerah and Pin, and Malchut, Nukva. And these are 5 gates. And they are demonstrated here. So it says, and these 5 leaves represent the 5 gates of salvation. And the word salvation here is Yeshuot. And if you rearrange the letters, you'll have the word Asiya, meaning, as it was stated before, the 13 words covers 1 Sephirot for Atziluth, 1 for Berea, 1 for Yetzirah, and 10 in Asiya. And so, therefore, the 5 leaves that come out of those 13 words represent the circular aspect, which are the 13 petals that surround and guard the lily, which is Elohim. And similarly, out of this, 5 rigid leaves come out, which are 5 partsufim. And the 5 partsufim, the partsufim Arik on Pin represents Kether, Abba represents Hokmah, Bina is Ima, Zerah and Pin are the lower 6 Sephirot, Chesed to Yisod, and then the final one here is Malchut. And so these 5 words represent 5 partsufim that came out and emerged from this, where of course the first word, Merokfet, which represents Arik on Pin, would represent Et, and Ol here would represent Shmaim and Finei, and so on and so forth. And the secret is written about in the verse, I will raise the cup of salvation, meaning that through these 5 partsufim, the elevation occurs. This is the cup of benediction that is raised after the meal. The cup of benediction must rest on 5 fingers, and no more, just as the lily rests on 5 rigid leaves that represent the 5 fingers. And this lily is the cup of benediction. And the 5 fingers that it rests on represent the 5 partsufim, and they represent the 5 Sephirot, Chesed, which is the thumb, Gevurah, which is the pointer finger, Tifreth, which is the middle finger, Netzach, which is the ring finger, and Hod, which is the pinky finger. So, mentioning these 5 words, it says they surround and guard the rose. And then similarly, 5 rigid leaves emerge from this. And just as the rose is tinged red and white, so is Knesset Israel tinged with attributes of judgment and mercy. And there, those 13 represent Israel, which is the center of Knesset Israel, and Knesset, the assembly, represents the 12 tribes that surround. And so similarly, there's a rose and a rose. And similarly, here are 5 Sephirot, which represent the 5 fingers, and a cup of benediction. And this is called the cup of salvation, and that these 5 partsufim represent the 5 gates of salvation, which is ascension, in which the cup of salvation becomes a cup of blessing. And we know that blessing comes from the word Baruch, Beit, Resh, Kaf. Beit represents Bina, Resh is for Rashon, which is Hokmah, and the Kaf there is Kether. So the word Baruch represents the upper 3 Sephirot. And so therefore the cup is lifted to that place through the process of ascension. With that being said, we have learned the secret of a rose and a rose 13 petals that surround and guard 5 rigid leaves that come out of that. There are circular and linear aspects. And even though there are linear represented by the differentiation of the Partsufim, they are still tied to their circular aspect. Thus they surround and guard nonetheless. That being said, Shalom, Selah.